Get ready to dive into the world of cryptocurrency, where privacy is kind of a big deal. And today we're diving deep, deep into Monero. It's practically become synonymous with anonymity in the crypto space, right? But, and here's the real head scratcher, if Monero is so good at covering your tracks, why are we even talking about someone or something being able to trace it?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, right?
Hmm.
You see, Monero has this really strong security foundation, but even the toughest fortresses have their weaknesses.
Okay, color me intrigued. We're diving into this article, and get this, it's about how chain analysis, the chain analysis, the guys the IRS actually brought in to crack Monero, might be doing just that. So for anyone listening who might be new to this whole crypto thing, how does Monero even achieve the supposed anonymity?
Imagine, for a second, a digital transaction where everything, I mean everything, the sender, the receiver, even how much is being sent, it's all hidden. It's like this secret code that only the person it's meant for can crack. That's Monero's whole deal, made possible by some pretty hardcore cryptography.
Sounds pretty airtight to me, so where's the catch?
Ah, the catch. It's all about how those transactions, those super secret ones, are actually relayed. You see, Monero relies on this network of nodes, think of them as like digital relay stations, to verify and broadcast the transactions. And it's within this network where things get a little dicey. There's potential for what we call malicious nodes to set up shop.
Malicious nose. Okay, suddenly I'm picturing something out of the Matrix. What exactly does that even mean?
Okay, picture this. You're sending a super secret message, right, through what you think is a totally secure channel. But, and here's the kicker, someone, let's call him a bad actor, has secretly installed a hidden camera. It's recording everything. That's kind of what a malicious node is like. They pretend to be a good guy, a trustworthy participant in the network, but they're actually spies, logging data like it's going out of style. And get this, they might even capture your IP address.
Wait, back up a second. So even though Monero masks all the transaction details, these malicious nodes could potentially expose my location. That sounds like a pretty big flaw.
Exactly. And to make matters worse, chain analysis, in a leaked video no less, showed how they use this very vulnerability to hunt down the, shall we say, administrators of a pretty shady dark web marketplace.
Well, you'd think those guys operating on the dark web, they'd be extra careful, wouldn't you?
You'd certainly hope so. I mean, they were using VPNs, proxies, the works, basically trying to create a digital smokescreen for their IP address.
But, and it's a big but, they slipped up just once. They connected to the network without their usual safeguards, and boom, chain analysis swooped in and, well, let's just say they knew exactly where to find them.
Ouch. Talk about a harsh lesson in what happens when you let your guard down, even for a second. It seems like in this game, understanding those vulnerabilities is just as crucial as knowing how to use the tools in the first place.
It all comes down to what we call OPSEC, operational security.
Basically, it's about minimizing those oops moments that could end up blowing your cover.
So apart from, being constantly on edge and looking over your shoulder, what can someone actually do to combat these malicious nodes? That brings us to the beauty of running your own node. Imagine you've got your very own personal blockchain verifier. It means your transactions are handled securely, privately, without having to rely on potentially compromised third parties.
It's like cutting out the middleman entirely. Taking control of your data and your privacy sounds empowering, but let's be real, setting up a node sounds, well, a little techy. How feasible is it for the average person to do this?
It's true. Running a full Monero node does require a bit of technical know-how. Plus, there's the storage space to consider. We're talking about a hefty chunk of data here, roughly 200 gigabytes.
200 gigabytes. It's like downloading every season of, well, everything. Yeah, not exactly practical for everyone.
Exactly. Even a pruned node, which is like a slimmed-down version, still needs around 60 gigabytes.
Yeah.
It's definitely a factor, especially for those on the move or with limited storage.
So what about those who can't, or maybe aren't quite ready to, take the plunge with running their own node? What are their options?
Hey, no need to worry. It's not an all-or-nothing situation. Remember those VPNs and proxies we talked about earlier? They become even more crucial if you're not running your own node. Think of it this way. By masking your IP address, you're essentially throwing those malicious nodes off your scent.
So it's like creating this digital maze, making it that much harder for those malicious nodes to pinpoint your location.
You got it. And for those who really want to ramp up their privacy game, there's always connecting to Monero nodes through the dark web using things like Tor or I2P.
Okay, hold on. Now we're getting into some seriously next level stuff. But isn't the dark web, kind of like the Wild West of the internet?
It has that reputation, for sure. But in this context, we're just talking about using the dark web's inherent anonymity to access those Monero nodes. Think of it like choosing a back alley route that's much harder to surveil. It's just an extra layer of protection, that's all.
So it's less about the destination, the Monero node itself, and more about the journey, the route you take to get there.
Exactly. Although it's important to remember that even with all of these measures, and they can make a big difference, you're not completely invisible.
Right, like any good security system, it's about deterring the majority of threats, not necessarily achieving some kind of absolute impenetrability.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And this brings us to a really important point that, honestly, a lot of Monero users tend to overlook the role of exchanges and something called intermediary wallets.
Right, the bridge between the, let's call it the Moneroverse and the old school financial system. That's where things can get a little messy, huh?
You said it. Because even the most privacy-conscious Monero user, at some point, they're going to have to interact with an exchange, to buy or sell their coins. And that's where that anonymity they've worked so hard for can unravel. Because a lot of these exchanges, they require what's known as KYC, know your customer.
KYC, oh yeah, I've been down that road before. It's like when you open a bank account, right? They want your ID, your proof of address, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. They need to verify your identity, for those pesky regulatory purposes. So here's the kicker. Even if all your Monero transactions are super secret, the moment you connect them to an exchange that has KYC, well, you're creating a link back to your real-world identity.
It's like going through all the trouble of having the secret identity, this whole alter ego, but then using your real name to check into a hotel. One slip up and it all comes crashing down.
Perfect analogy. And that, my friend, is where intermediary wallets step into the spotlight. Think of them like, instead of using your home address for something, you use a P.O. box.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. So how does this intermediary wallet actually work in practice?
So instead of sending your funds directly from your personal Monero wallet to the exchange, you transfer them first to this intermediary wallet. It acts as this kind of buffer, a one-time use address almost.
So even if that exchange has your KYC info, they won't be able to directly link those transactions back to your main Monero wallet.
Exactly. It's all about creating that crucial degree of separation, making it that much harder to trace your overall activity. Think of it as an extra layer of obfuscation, basically enhancing Monero's built-in privacy features.
So it's like you're right, a secret drop point. Even if someone stumbles upon one location, your main stash is still safe and sound.
That's the idea. It's about being smart, being proactive. You have to know where the weak points are and then, shore them up. And that's why staying informed is so important.
Because this whole privacy landscape, it's constantly changing, isn't it? Like what works today might be old news tomorrow.
That's the thing. New techniques, both for improving privacy and, well, getting around it, are popping up all the time. It's this constant back and forth. For example, we've been talking about these malicious nodes that they can grab your IP address, right? Well, there are even sneakier attack methods out there.
Oh, like what? Spill the beans?
Have you ever heard of something called a dust attack?
Dust attack.
Oh.
Sounds more like an allergy than a cyber threat.
I know, right? But it's actually pretty sneaky. Imagine this. Tiny, and I mean minuscule, amounts of cryptocurrency are sent to tons of wallets, like sprinkling dust all over the network.
Okay, and what's the point of that? Seems more annoying than anything.
Well, the whole goal is to try and connect those seemingly random wallets to one single owner. By, analyzing how those dust transactions move around, investigators, they might be able to find patterns, and potentially figure out who's behind those wallets.
Wow. Talk about a needle in a haystack. It's like leaving a trail of digital breadcrumbs hoping someone's going to pick up the scent and track you down.
Exactly. And then there's timing analysis. This one focuses on, the timing of your transactions, the patterns they make. So if you can link up those transaction times with other things someone's doing online, you might be able to connect the dots and, uncover some identities.
So it's not even just about what you're doing with your crypto. It's about when you're doing it. Every little detail matters in this game.
You got it. It just shows you real privacy. It takes constant vigilance. You have to really understand the threats. And those threats, they're always evolving. You have to stay one step ahead, always thinking about the next move.
Which leads us to, the million-dollar question. What's next for privacy in this crazy world of cryptocurrency?
The million-dollar question indeed. As technology keeps moving, the ways to protect privacy and, of course, the ways to get around it, they'll just keep evolving too. It's like this never-ending race, But one thing's for sure. knowledge is power.
Absolutely. Understanding all of this, even though it can get pretty complex, that's the first step to making smart decisions about your own privacy.
Exactly. And don't get discouraged by all the technical stuff. Even small steps like using a VPN or, like we talked about, checking out an intermediary wallet. These things can make a real difference.
So, to wrap things up for our listeners today, it's clear that Monero, it gives you the tools for privacy, but it's not some magic shield. It takes being proactive, questioning everything, and always staying informed.
Couldn't have said it better. The digital world is constantly changing, and so should the ways we protect our privacy.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the world of Monero. Stay curious out there, stay vigilant, and until next time, stay private.